My name is Chris Conklin. I'm the director of the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. I'm really happy to welcome everybody here to celebrate the conclusion of 7 years of planning and design and 5 years of construction to realize the opening of this new below-grade pedestrian connection between the National Institutes of Health and Walter Reed Medical Center here in Bethesda. These are two of the largest employers in Montgomery County. There's also a new set of elevators connecting to the metro mezzanine here, which really help provide additional egress capacity under emergency conditions and are a great improvement to the metro system. This was a huge undertaking involving federal, state, and local partners with a lot of work over a lot of time, lots of engagement by many people to realize the project you see here today. I want to acknowledge representatives of many of our elected official staff offices. Ken Reichert from Senator Cardin's office is here today. Vicky Garcia from Congressman Sarbanes' office. Kathleen O'Connor from Congressman Raskin's office. And especially Joan Kleiman from Senator Van Hollen's office, who I understand this is her last day with your team, and I know she worked closely with people to get this project done, and thank you for all the time you've helped bringing Montgomery County issues to the Senator's attention, which I know he always appreciates as well. I also want to thank our state delegation members who, due to the scheduling in Annapolis, were unable to make it today, but Delegate Corman, Carr, and Solomon share their best wishes, and they wish they could be with us today, but important business in Annapolis is keeping them from attending. Just to recap, this project took quite a long time to complete, and it's not because the work went too slow. This is a very complex undertaking. Below this is rock, so we had to blast 100 feet down below the surface that we're sitting on today through rock to make the connection to the metro mezzanine. And there were very significant modifications to the metro station, including new stairs from the mezzanine to the platform and connections into the fare gate area that if you have the opportunity after this to go take a look at that work, I think you'll find that you can't tell where the new starts and the old ends. And that's very important to preserve the design integrity of the metro system and have it have a consistent look and feel regardless of when facilities were added to that. In addition to the pedestrian underpass here, which is really an important safety enhancement that allows the connection between these two large federal campuses without people needing to cross busy Rockville Pike at this signalized intersection, you'll note that you still can. We always want to maintain a safe pedestrian crossing at the street level. But if you prefer to use the underpass, it's available to you. And again, after the event, I encourage you to go take a look at that new facility, the 4 new elevators, the 2 new stairs, the bike runnels and the staircases that allow you to bring a bike up and down the stairs easily, and really make a seamless connection between these 2 facilities. There are also a series of roadway improvements that were made in cooperation with the Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration, sidewalk reconstruction, repaving, intersection changes down the road here at the Woodmont Avenue intersection to make that intersection a safer place for pedestrians as well. This project was supported with federal funding drawn largely from the Department of Defense related to the Base Closing and Realignment Commission activities. The county managed the design and construction. It was a design build contract with Clark Construction Company who worked tirelessly to get this project done and worked closely with WMATA to integrate this facility into their existing metro station. The pedestrian underpass that was constructed here is dedicated to Phil Alperson, and you'll hear from members of his family later today. Phil Alperson worked in the then Congressman Van Hollen's office earlier and then joined Montgomery County to really lead the coordination of this project and to make sure all the grant requirements were met. And we really appreciated his service to the county and these institutions in making this project a reality. We have many, many speakers today, so I won't go on and on because I think people have things they want to say and contribute to the conversation. The first person I'd like to introduce is the Naval Commanding Officer here at Naval Support Activity Bethesda, Captain Scott Switzer. Let's see if I can clip this so it doesn't blow away.
Thanks very much. All right, thank you, Chris, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with so many of the organizations that made the Maryland 355 Crossing project come to fruition. The project is an essential step in creating a safe environment for our staff, patients, visitors, and the uniformed service university students. Under normal conditions, more than 1.5 million people cross this crosswalk every year. Those who use it probably know or at least suspect that it's one of the busiest crossings in all the state of Maryland. What they probably don't know, however, is that it adds up to a wait time of more than 6.5 years in a 365-day period, and a single employee can spend up to 17 hours waiting at that crosswalk each and every year. That's a lot of wasted productivity. More important than the time saved, though, this new path to reach our gate eliminates a lot of traffic and safety concerns, providing us with a better and safer commute. I used to joke looking out here that it looked like a game of Frogger. Some of you older people who know that crossing. Yeah. This moment's an opportunity to reflect on the hard work it took to reach this point and to recognize those who pushed hard over the last decade to bring the project from a mere concept to this brand new plaza that you see. On behalf of those who will benefit, we want to thank former Senator Barbara Mikulski, a powerful champion of the United States Congress, for the funding of this project. We also want to thank current Senator and former 8th District Representative Chris Van Hollen, sir, for his support. Two key players from Montgomery County deserve special recognition as well. The late Phil Alperson, who was instrumental in the success of the Montgomery County BRAC Integration Committee, and Tim Couples, who was essential in helping define the project's engineering requirements. Our thanks to Phil's family for being here to help celebrate this moment. Thank you also to the Federal Highway Administration and Maryland State Highway Administration for your oversight and assistance with safety and traffic. I'd also like to mention the artwork that you saw, or will see if you haven't been below, on display in the shallow underpass. Courtesy of the National Institute of Health and the USO, one of our great partners who does so much for our service members here on the base and elsewhere around the country. In coordination with my staff, they developed the artwork, and it shares important parts of our story, the story of Bethesda and Walter Reed and the United States Uniformed Service University. Finally, we wouldn't be here today without Clark Construction and WMATA. Thank you both for your leadership in coordinating this project, and thanks for working with everyone to create a safe working environment from start to finish. It's been a long, hard road to get this project completed. We're grateful to have a much safer path to access our installation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. I'd now like to introduce our County Executive, Mr. Marc Elrich.
It was 70 degrees only 2 days ago. Weird weather. But it's always a beautiful day when you finally solve a difficult problem that's taken so long to get fixed. This is really important intersection. It's an important improvement for residents of Montgomery County, for people who work in Montgomery County, and particularly people who access this station going to. These are our two largest employers in Montgomery County, just in case you're wondering. This intersection is this is not an insignificant place here. And between Center Lane and Cedar Lane, this is also one of Montgomery County's high injury spots, part of the high injury network. Odd to have a high injury network, but this is in the high injury network, and it's due to the elevated levels of serious crashes and fatal crashes. In the last 6 years of construction, 4 pedestrians have been injured here, 6 bicyclists. There have been 7 serious auto accidents and 1 fatality, just in this space here. According to the Vision Zero expert, this is one of the most dangerous intersections in the entire county, and individuals crossing the street are some of the smartest and bravest and probably best Frogger players in this nation. It's a skill. Naval Support Activity Bethesda and Walter Reed Medical Center, like I said, they're the second largest employer, and it's NIH, which is our largest employer. And this project was hard to get completed. This is not an easy thing. It looks easy when you're down there. I mean, I'm looking at this and thinking, really? But 100 feet of rock to blast through, that you don't see. And And where there's rock, there's also water around here. So there are a lot of things that impact this station. So there's a lot of work to be done. I want to thank, some of the folks who've been critical to this. Senator Cardin's not here, but Ken Reichert from his staff is here. And he was an important part. And of course, former Congressman and now Senator Chris Van Hollen played an important role in getting this done. And Senator Barbara Mikulski. Things moved through the Senate and come to Montgomery County, and she was a big help in making sure these things move forward. I want to thank all the community and business leaders. This was truly a joint project. This community was deeply involved in how this was going to get done. It was important to them that it be done right, and our folks and the staff here took the time to make sure this project was done in a way that was consistent with what people in the community wanted to see happen here. I remember those early discussions, and we've come a long way from those early discussions. It's really nice to see what's actually transpired here. And I want to thank our partners in the Department of Defense, the Navy, Maryland SHA, Federal Highway Administration, National Institutes of Health, and the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority and Clark Construction. All of you made this project happen. You worked together. You focused on getting it to the end. I know it seems like a long time, but again, the work required it, and the cooperation, I think, was well worth it. I want to just close by saying something about Phil. We're standing here on Alperson Way, and it's really a tribute to the work that he put into it. He worked, for the county for 32 years. He was both a guide and leader on the BRAC process. He was picked as the logical person to lead us through BRAC, and BRAC we know is bigger than just this. And his knowledge and understanding and his patience, and I had witness to his patience, particularly during the early days, was critical in getting this and keeping this on the path that it was. So we're naming the BRAC 355 underpass Alperson Way to properly acknowledge and remember Phil in recognition of his years of dedicated public service and this indelible mark which he will leave on Montgomery County, this community, and for his leadership throughout the BRAC process. As always, Montgomery County has lots of dedicated employees. We get things done here because of the workforce we have is willing to put the time, energy, and thought into doing things the right way. And Phil is just a stunning example of that. I really thank the family for coming here. And I know the sacrifice that you had to make with Phil during the time he was working. This was not a 9-to-5 job. It wasn't something you did and then you walked home to. So the support he had undoubtedly was important to his success. So thank you especially for that, and thank you all.
Thank you, County Executive. I'd now like to recognize our other major federal partner and invite NIH Principal Deputy Director Dr. Tara Schwetz to come and give us a little bit of information about how this is impactful to the NIH facility.
Morning, everyone. 70 degrees would be really nice right now. As indicated, I'm Tara Schwetz. I am the Acting Principal Deputy Director of NIH, and it's a real pleasure to join you all here today as we formally dedicate this tunnel, the product of vision, collaboration, hard work, and even a little artistic flair. Here we find that that form truly meets function. And it's an essential function, too, as you heard earlier. The intersection at Medical Center Transit Center is constantly busy, especially pre-pandemic. It's always been such a very congested place with pedestrians and cyclists and personal vehicles and buses all moving through this area. And the project gives pedestrians and cyclists the option of a safe, well-lit tunnel under the roadway, allowing them access to cross without having to wait for the traffic light to change. And it's an enormous improvement that makes the intersection safe for everyone, which is, of course, top priority. And this achievement is the culmination of an array of federal, state, county roadway, and shared use path improvement projects on all sides of the NIH Bethesda campus. These projects have widened intersections to improve traffic flow and pedestrian and cyclist safety, and have elevated the overall experience by widening paths, improving lighting, planting trees and flowers, which is always nice, and sustaining the environment by properly addressing stormwater management. As a whole, the project has been a model of intergovernmental cooperation and prudent investment in infrastructure for a sustainable future. It will enhance the safety and commuting experience of thousands who use the Medical Center Metro station on a daily basis, myself included, as an intermodal hub. So rail, bus, cycling, and pedestrian, be they employees, patients, or visitors of Walter Reed, Suburban, or NIH. And of course, it will serve the commuting needs of Bethesda residents. NIH is honored to have collaborated with all these state, federal, county, and WMATA leaders, as well as industry partners who designed and constructed the new crossing and made this project, which seemed fairly impossible almost 10 years ago, and helped make it a reality. I'd also like to thank NIH's many contributors to the project. These include the Community Liaison Council, managed by our Office of Communications and Public Liaison, which allowed us to update the community on the project and its progress. Our representatives on the BRAC Implementation Committee, which included staff members from the Office of the Director, the Office of Research Facilities, and the Office of Research Services. And I want to note a special thank you to Dan Whelan, Alfred Johnson, and Colleen McGowan, who were heavily involved in NIH's participation in this construction project. So congratulations to everyone involved. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. We're really grateful to see that this is a reality now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker, United States Senator Chris Van Hollen. Thank you so much, Senator.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's great to be here with so many of my colleagues and all the partners who are critical to bringing us to here today. County Executive Elrich, thank you for your leadership. To my colleagues on the County Council, thank all of you. To the men and women who work at two great American institutions, Walter Reed Military Medical Center and NIH, thank you for your service to our country. You are examples to the world, and as the county executive said, the two biggest employers right here in Montgomery County. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul Wiedefeld, Metro, all your team for connecting these two through the tunnel. And Senator Cardin, as you heard, wanted to be here, as did Jamie Raskin, as did John Sarbanes, and thank the representatives for being here as well. Thank you, Chris, for mentioning Joan Kleinman, who headed my district office in the House of Representatives, now my state office. As you mentioned, she's retiring now to spend more time with her grandchild. But she was a dear friend of Phil, and she's just done enormous good work for our community. Thank you, Joan, for... And Joan and Phil really started the same day in our congressional office, and I'm going to really pick up where Marc left off and talk a little bit about Phil. You're going to hear a lot about this project. It's a critical project for all the reasons that have been said, and you'll hear about. But I do want to take this moment to talk about Phil Alperson. My world intersected with Phil Alperson's about 20 years ago. I had just been elected to represent Maryland's 8th congressional district, Montgomery County, and then a little part of Prince George's County. Phil, at the time, was working for a Democratic member of Congress from Mississippi. This is in November 2002 when the election took place. The member of Congress he was working for, Ronnie Schau, lost in that election. And Ronnie Schau's loss was my good fortune because it meant that Phil was looking for a job. And he was looking for a job somewhere in Maryland if possible. And I was looking for somebody who was experienced in navigating Capitol Hill and somebody who knew Maryland. And so it was a great match. And that's how Phil and I first came to meet. I remember Phil Alperson most of all for his overwhelming optimism and sense of public spirit. When I was sworn in back in January 2003, we became good partners and friends. He believed that public service was a virtue and believed in the power of the government, in this case the federal government, to be able to do really good things for the people that we represent. And so as we gather to dedicate this tunnel in his memory, I just want to share a few stories about Phil. His career was guided by an enduring devotion to the servicemen and women of this country. He had worked for Ronnie Schau from Mississippi. He'd worked on lots of things involving supporting our military. And Walter Reed was, of course, right at the center of all of that. Phil had also been very involved in passage and critical to the passage of something called TRICARE for Life, which is really important to members of our military. It essentially allows veterans to receive Medicare wraparound coverage. If you talk to folks in the military, they will tell you TRICARE for Life is a promise that was made to them, and Phil Alperson is the one who helped keep that promise. Then, of course, we came to BRAC, reorganization. And for those of you who follow the BRAC process closely, you know all states are then competing to see who is going to be able to retain and maintain and even grow important military presence in their states and counties. And Phil was part of that process from the beginning. And of course, Walter Reed at that time was in Washington, D.C., but as part of the BRAC process, it moved to the site of then the Naval Medical Center. And what that meant was all the people who used to come to Walter Reed would be coming here, and all the people who worked at Walter Reed would be coming here. So a much larger footprint meant more visitors, both military personnel and veterans and family members, as well as more public employees and all the people who cared for them. So more people who needed care and more people providing that care, all converging at this spot here. And so that's when Phil got to work in trying to make sure we had the resources to address that, because we didn't want veterans or military personnel stuck in traffic, nor did we want the people who cared for them to be stuck in traffic. So it was a long and frustrating process, but it was a process that was worth the fight. And whenever we had any doubts about the cause, it would be Phil who said, just remember, this is about Walter Reed, and this is about the men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line for the rest of us. So we got to work. The key was to get the money, because the position that the military took during BRAC was that they would only spend money inside the fence, meaning inside the perimeter of, in this case, the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. They weren't going to spend money outside the fence, even though what was happening inside the fence had a big impact on the community outside the fence in terms of traffic. That was their position. So we had to find a way around it. And we did. And Phil was persistent. Somebody who's not been mentioned today, but who was absolutely key to this, is a former member of Congress, Jack Murtha. Jack Murtha is a former Marine, and he was the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Committee in the House of Representatives. And so we went to Jack and said, we need this in order to address the impact and make sure veterans' families are cared for. Jack was there, and he put the money in the appropriations bill. It was over $80 million. In fact, the total amount was $300 million, but then there was $80 million, which was a huge amount of money. But Jack put it there. He put it there because we pressed him, and Phil was persistent in making sure that money got into the bill. That was the beginning of the story, though, not the end. And I want to thank all the folks from the federal government who finally helped us extract those funds, because of the unusual way that we got this money in, it was really hard to get it out for the program. And that is where Phil's talents really went to work, extracting the funds that had been put in the bill for this purpose, but where we had a hell of a time trying to get them pried loose. And Phil did it, and then of course he moved to Montgomery County, as you heard, to take over the BRAC process here, and he just kept at it and made sure that those funds came through. So Phil, and I just want to add the other big dimension to Phil's life here, and I apologize for the extra time, but I do think we need to remember him in his fullness. In another life, Phil Alperson would have been a Broadway star. He could often be found center stage in a community theater production. He was part of a group of Capitol Hill staffers that were part of a group called Hexagon, which put on plays and all sorts of skits, and he was brilliant. He was brilliant at it. There was no talent, musical talent, at the top of our office, but Phil and some others did. And from time to time, they would recruit members of Congress to participate in these skits with pretty big audiences. And you'd appear there, and they'd give you these lines that were triple X rated, I'm telling you right now. But I always had to count on Phil to make sure that he did a little bit of editing to make sure that we were all okay, and he did. So Phil, committed to service, always with a smile, committed to humor, committed to spreading joy. That is the Alperson way. That is the Alperson way. And as we dedicate this important project in his name, I hope we'll all remember that as we do our jobs, let's bring a little joy to others. And the greatest source of joy in Phil's life was his family. And so, Jane, it's great to see you. You know how much he loved you, and you were the light of his life. And Reva, you're your dad's pride and joy. He talked about you all the time. And I know how important he was in your life, and I know he's smiling on us all right now. So to Phil Alperson and the Alperson way, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the county for dedicating the tunnel in Phil's name. And let's just all dedicate ourselves to living our lives with public purpose, but a lot of joy, bringing joy to others. So thank you all very much for being part of this.
Thank you very much, Senator, for bringing some human scale to our remarks today and not just talking about concrete and stone. I would now like to introduce the Director of the Office of Local Defense Community Operation, Mr. Patrick O'Brien.
Thank you. My office is in the Department of Defense, and on behalf of Secretary Austin and the men and women who serve our country, I want to thank those of you that are here today for recognizing the effort that was put forward. And before I get into those more specific comments, I want to make a couple higher comments. There's a little bit more to the story than Senator Van Hollen may have shared with you. So Walter Reed was not alone in the impacts where DOD was moving personnel, and there were several different locations where we had transportation problems. People could not get to the new base. And in some instances, those impacts, we were increasing the personnel 50% or more. And some of those locations were in the hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so the department, as is typical in these kinds of things, it's on state and local government to do this. And it puts my office in an awkward spot because I'm kind of like in between this dynamic that occurs. And so we heard from the Maryland folks. We also heard from a guy named Moran. I perked up when I heard Moran because I'm O'Brien. And but the Virginia delegation had a concern. The Washington State delegation had a concern. So this $300 million program that came into existence, it only did come about because of the push made by then Congressman Van Hollen through the appropriators. But pushing the money was just part of it. I got a call from our comptroller asking me, can you execute this? Can you do this? And as I said, this is where my office picks up. My office knows how to do these things, but we had to compete the money. And we competed that $300 million. So the efforts that the congressional delegation for Maryland, Congressman Van Hollen, exercised, along with the others, didn't just benefit Walter Reed. As a result of that competition, people now have access, better access to Joint Base San Antonio. If you ever burn yourself in the military, that's where you have to go usually. They had tremendous growth there. They needed access. Fort Belvoir. If you ever go down to Fort Belvoir, Route 1 was widened to more than 2 lanes, more than 4 lanes. Joint Base Lewis McChord out in Washington State, Madigan Army Medical Complex, and here. And I will say this is the most complex of the projects that we funded. So I first want to recognize the partnering that took place here. When this project was selected, my eyebrows went up because I have to carry this out. Okay, the more the partners, the merrier, but the more difficult it can be. Yes, we had the Navy, we had NIH, we had Federal Highway Administration. We also had the Defense Access Roads Program, Montgomery County, and WMATA. And I shook my head when I saw WMATA. Because as a federal agency, I like to have a clear path on how things are going to work. I had no idea how this was going to work. And I have to say it worked well. And before we could touch dirt, we had to have it working well. We had to have an agreement with everybody in hand. So I want to thank the partners who stepped forward. I also want to recognize this project turned out to be $104 million. It's one of 4 that were funded by my office to improve access to this facility. Wounded warriors, their dependents, the uniformed personnel, it's for their benefit that this money came to be. And I wanted to just say, the department has mixed feelings about money going directly to communities. And let me just say, I met Phil after this project was funded, not before. I met a guy named Paul Giulo, who you may recall who he might have been, some other folks. But after this project was funded, I sat down with Phil and our project management team, and I'll get to that in a second, but I told them, I don't care what happens, we're not going to fail on this because there's a lot of people that would like to see this fail. And the only reason it didn't fail is because of the people you have here today. They refused to let it fail. And when they took that at heart, it wasn't 24/7. It was minute by minute. All right, and there wasn't an issue that they couldn't address. And I'll just bring up a couple of them. When we first started the project and it was going, you heard about the tunnels, you heard about the elevator shafts, and the rock they had to blow through. Well, they got into the project and they realized they were about $30+ million short. And actually it was about $36 million short to be exact, and our original grant was $40 million to them. And so my project team brought it to me, and I looked at them and I said, what? And when you blow through that kind of stone and stuff, you encounter things you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I want to credit Montgomery County for helping to come up with some of that shortage. And I don't know how the hell we did it, but we came up with the rest of it. And it's almost like there was this hand behind our actions looking after us. And I can't say enough that when you do projects like this, you have environmental issues, you have construction problems. We had a construction accident on this site. Just the unforeseen. And to everybody who participated, thank you. And I'm going to cut my remarks here with the last recognition of 2 people. Phil Alperson. A lot of people spoke about Phil. As I said, I met Phil and I told him, you're not going to let this fail. He didn't let it fail. And he didn't flinch at that $36 million shortfall. He didn't flinch at the environmental issues that we were finding in the ground, or that the county was finding in the ground. And, all those neighborhood meetings. So the second person I want to recognize is Jeanette, at the time Musel. Swarovski is now. Jeanette was my project manager. So she brought the shortfall to me. She brought the problems to me. She would attend all those neighborhood meetings. I think she got to know everybody personally at those meetings. That's the way you get these things done. And, we're doing this around the country at a lot of different locations, but this is the most complex. And I have to say that between Jeanette and Phil, so Jeanette on the federal side and Phil on the local side, they're the ones that are accountable for this. And so on behalf of the Secretary again, we thank the people of Montgomery County, the congressional folks from Maryland, both past and present, as well as the leadership, and quite frankly, the neighborhood. Our installations don't do well without the neighborhood supporting them. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to introduce our council president, Mr. Gabe Albornoz.
Hello, good people. Well, in these unsettling and unusually odd times, globally and nationally, it's nice to be able to get together in person to celebrate something so important to all of our residents here in Montgomery County and the employees of these two incredibly important institutions. As was said, I am Gabe Albornoz, president of the Montgomery County Council, and on behalf of all of my colleagues, I want to thank our federal and state and local partners for making today possible. I actually live around the corner from here. I live about about half a mile from here, and it's pretty cold, so now I'm regretting my decision to walk here. But I can tell you that by extension, this community is incredibly appreciative of this project. I want to thank our Department of Transportation for their tireless efforts to make sure that this happened and that we are here today to celebrate it. 12 residents in Montgomery County have lost their lives in the last 14 months on Montgomery County roads. So it has never been more important than right now for our federal, state, and local partners to advance projects like this that ensures the safety of all of our residents. And it's not a stretch to say that it is in our national interest to make sure that the incredible employees of these two institutions arrive to their places of work safely and efficiently every day. It's also important for our national health, because when you think about and process the work that's going on in these two facilities right now, it also has never been more important than right now. And I want to close with this to the Alperson family. My deputy chief of staff is Lillian Cruz, who worked in the Van Hollen office alongside Phil for a number of years. And she shared with me the stories of his wit, his humor, and how dedicated he was to public service. So on behalf of the council, I can't think of a more appropriate person in this world to name this underpass under. And I loved Senator Van Hollen's comments about the Alperson Way, which is so appropriate. So thank you so much for your family's commitment. We will do everything that we can to honor Phil's legacy here in our community. So once again, on behalf of all of our residents, thank you so much for this project. I look forward to utilizing this underpass myself many, many times, and so does my family. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council President. We are in our Council District 1, so I'd like to introduce the District Council member, Mr. Andrew Friedson.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you to everybody for being here. I will just say I definitely live closer to NIH than Gabe does. He definitely lives closer to Walter Reed Medical than I do. We got to get out the measuring tape to determine who lives closer to the tunnel, because it's pretty close. And you do. You got us both people. We're definitely inside the mile marker to both. But this is a project that showed why we call this Rockville Pike several $100 million later, but one that is incredibly complicated. It took a lot of leadership from a lot of people, starting with Senator Van Hollen and Phil Alperson and so many others, so many people who are here today and many who are not here today who made this possible. This is a project that's about keeping people safe. It's about keeping our country safe, as Gabe mentioned. This is keeping the people who keep our country safe, who keep our country and the world healthy, keeping them safe and healthy. Tens of thousands of people, 1.5 million people a year who will be able to go to and from work, do world-changing research, will literally save the world many times over, will protect our country, will protect freedom around the world, and will be able to do so in a way that they're safe and their families are safe. And you can't measure that in dollars. You can't measure that in years. I will note 7 years, 7 in the Bible is completion. So I'm very glad that this is complete. Certainly a long time coming. But this is also a really good example of what happens when we embrace the federal presence that we are so lucky and fortunate to have in Montgomery County, and when our federal partners embrace the county and embrace the communities in which they live in. That doesn't happen everywhere. That doesn't always happen, and it didn't happen by chance. It happened by choices. And so thank you so much to our federal partners, our federal delegation, our federal leadership, and thank you so much to the community leaders, the BRAC Implementation Committee, the neighborhood leaders, the community leaders. We're so lucky. I'm just thinking of some people who are here, Ilya and Debbie and Nancy and Patrick and Janan and Ed and Richard. There's so many others. I can't name everybody, but the 7 years that this took to happen, it happened a lot of late nights, a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm just so glad and so privileged that this is going to be here for so long. And I'll just note when it comes to Phil Alperson, his way is going to keep people safe. To be able to call this Phil Alperson way, he is literally going to continue to lead people in a way that will keep them safe from harm, which is such a beautiful testament to his service and his memory. And his way is also the people who are walking through this tunnel, who are dedicating their lives and everything that they do in service to our country, in service to our community, in service to creating a better world in which we live. And for that to be a testament to his memory, it will continue to be a blessing, just how his life was. And thank you for sharing him with us. And we look forward to sharing his memory with millions and millions of people who are going to cross this path and this tunnel through the rest of the time, and the incredible world-changing advancements and life-saving actions that they're going to take in his memory, and thanks to the path that he has helped to lead us. So thank you so much to everybody for being here, and so proud to be a part of this.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson. Next speaker, Mr. Will Jawando, Councilmember also from Montgomery County.
Thank you. I promise I'm the last council member you hear from. There's 9 of us, and we all are happy, and we're representing today. My dad actually worked at Walter Reed for many years, and went through the BRAC process and made this walk that he's no longer with us. He passed in 2017, but I'm really happy that his colleagues, thanks to the work of so many, including the Alpersons and Phil, will be able to do it a little more safely. Senator Van Hollen mentioned the theme of public service, and I wanted to say something about that as well. That's a really connecting point here. Everyone here is here to help people in our community and around the world. My dad was one of them. Phil was one of them. We as electeds are one of them. Some are here, some are gone. And if you heard some of the names that were mentioned, Jack Murtha, indomitable presence that he is and was. Senator Barbara Mikulski, and of course Phil. They aren't here today. Some are still with us, but some have retired. It's really a testament to what public service is. You plant seeds for future generations, and you may not see the benefit, but you know that it will come. And in small and big ways, that's what this is about. It's going to help people be safe. It's going to help the technology and the innovation that happens in these 2 buildings and the life-saving medical devices and the like to go forward. And that's a big deal. And it's also going to keep our residents and communities safe. It was mentioned that BRAC doesn't always go well. You know, those of us that worked on Capitol Hill, and I did attend some hexagons. I worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years. Didn't know Phil. Maybe I laughed at his jokes a couple times. But we stayed away from BRAC. BRAC, you know, no one wanted to work on BRAC because it was so complicated. And I just want to say to the family, we are so, so proud that we could dedicate this from the county level. And it means a lot. In public service, you don't always. I hope that I can live like Phil and plant some seeds, even if I'm not here to see what happens and it doesn't come to fruition in my lifetime. And I think hopefully the world will be a better place if we can all keep that in mind. So congratulations. I'm glad people are going to be safe, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Councilmember Jawando. Next, the leader of a regional organization that I very much admire, Mr. Paul Wiedefeld.
Good morning. I will be very, very brief. Three things. Our number one priority is safety, and that's what this project is about. So it's fantastic to have it as part of it. Second, it's about partnerships. We even get to work with DOD, and it worked out fine. Thank you. And then third, we're open for business. Please use our system. We need the money. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is representing some of the community participation that led to this level of accomplishment. So, BRAC Implementation Committee Co-Chair, Ms. Deborah Michaels.
Who wins for closest commute?
I live the closest. We'll just settle that now. I'm not sure everybody's talking about 7 years, but the BRAC Implementation Committee started 15 years ago. It was the basis for what's here today. It was a joint effort. I'm just one small person in a large conglomerate of residents, businesses, chambers, elected officials, NIH, NSA Bethesda, I've got the name right now, and all of our political leaders, from council members to Senator, was then Congressman Van Hollen, who was our champion from the get-go, and for that we thank you. The most important word in the Community Implementation Committee, the guidance that we got from the county that had the foresight to start this committee, was implementation. Failure was not an option. We were given the mission to make BRAC work for all of us. There was no failure allowed. We took that to heart. Everybody worked together. Doors were opened. Partnerships aligned. NIH and NSA Bethesda listened to our concerns, worked alongside and with the community to achieve one of the first urban BRACs to receive federal funds for outside the fence, making the BRAC installation successful. To help us through those 15 years, most of them, was Phil. Phil worked endlessly to facilitate the process and to make sure our goals were achieved through knowledge, perseverance, expertise, and I'm reading this because I want to get it all out, and a wicked sense of humor. Phil got things done. He always took your phone call, found solutions and compromises when roadblocks and tempers were raised. Phil's previous government experience, especially with our other champion, Senator Van Hollen, held him in good stead with his accomplishments. I'd like to thank everyone for recognizing the importance of Phil's work and what we as a community, with his guidance and fruition, have achieved. I would also like to thank Phil's family for their support and allowing us to keep a little bit of Phil with us as we all walk the Alperson way. Thank you.
Now, our last speakers are probably our most important speakers. Phil's family, Jane Alperson and his daughter, Riva. So welcome and thank you. Please come up and share your remarks with us.
Oh, gosh, it's cold, isn't it? Okay. I look around here, and I don't know all of you, and certainly not with your mask on, but I really thank all of you for being here. It's really exciting for us. It's a gift to us to have Phil so kindly recognized. He would be so honored to see you all here, and he would be so excited to see the culmination of this whole thing because it is such a big thing. He was committed to public service even as a high schooler and in White Plains, and he's got a couple of people here who went to high school with him. And he came to Capitol Hill, and the rest is history. He did instill that. Talk to us about that. And my daughter is pretty much in public service now, public health. So, and I worked at Department of Justice. That counts for something. So, but we really care. We care about our fellow man. I met him in Hexagon. And I was the props crew chief. He was a big star. But what I liked about him was he was running for president, so my interest in power, drew me to him. But once he was president, he was able to get people to compromise. And the organization had some interesting characters. But he was able to get people to talk to each other, to accept reality, just to do these things. So didn't ever feel like I could do it as well as he could. So I was happy about that. And as far as this project goes, I have a lot of extended family in South Carolina. And they heard about BRAC a lot. When Phil would visit, and they were going, what is it? And each reunion, he'd have to explain again what it was. So we've all heard that a lot. I remember, and I think it was one weekend in the summertime, there was tension about the breakthrough into the metro station. And I think it was a weekend, maybe a Friday or something like that. And I just remember the tension. And then finally, it did keep getting postponed, but then it finally happened. It's like, oh, okay, nothing hideous happened. But I personally remember that. The last thing I'll leave you with is something from Phil's notes I found. He, and you'll appreciate this, he, in his little chicken scratch handwriting, had written and underlined it. This is Walter Reed. And that is the way he lived. And you know what? You could be against what he wanted. He would come back at you that way. He was on message, and it was a beautiful thing. And he believed it. He just believed it. And it was just wonderful to see a person with that kind of commitment. So that's my words today. I'm not sure my daughter has anything too much to say.
I wasn't prepared to speak today, but thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I didn't know Phil, but I really appreciate all the sentiments people shared today, and it's obvious to me that I missed being able to interact with a really special person who brought this project to completion. I would like to personally thank our hosts at Naval Support Activity Bethesda, National Institutes of Health, and all of the county staff who helped put this event together. But I'd also like to recount just a little personal anecdote. There was a time, it was probably about 4 years ago, where for about 8 weeks I was responsible for the oversight of this project directly. And that was an interesting time, and through that experience I really got to appreciate how complicated many of these things were, like did the doors lock or not lock. More recently, this didn't happen that time, but does the caller ID give the right location and phone number, or does it say it's the auto warranty service center trying to reach you, and getting those things ironed out. And other questions like, was the hole that was being blasted through the rock big enough for the shaft, given some building code changes? So lots of challenges, lots of complication. This project was never a certainty. I'd like to personally thank our transportation engineering director, Tim Couples, who was instrumental in getting this project to fit within the budget in the early days and to get this underway, and Frank Kingsley, who oversaw this construction and completion of the project, and who has a future in voiceover, as you'll hear in the narration of the video, in the tunnel. And then finally, I'd like to thank all of the staff from all of the departments, WMATA, the State Highway Administration, Montgomery County Department of Transportation, Department of Defense, National Institutes of Health, and all the people who aren't here, didn't get their names called, but without them this wouldn't have happened. So thank you to everybody. I welcome you to take tours of the facility, to ride the escalator, for Paul's benefit, to use the fare gates to go in and out of the WMATA station. And to appreciate the art and the stories that are told on the video below, and for your perseverance in the less than pleasant, this is February, it is supposed to be like this, everyone, day, and for your attendance. Thank you very much.